They've been accused of lies, damn lies, and incompetence.
Sky News is in a position to call this election.
There's been triumph and defeat. Political suicide. A nation left rudderless.
I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction.
And democracy in crisis. It seems we may be going through a very British revolution, and it was time to get out of the capital to find out what had happened at its heart, to England.
As I'm leaving London behind me and reflecting on how some of the boroughs voted at least 70% to remain inside the European Union, I'm heading towards Great Yarmouth. Now, that was a completely different picture. Some 70+% voted to leave. It can't just be an issue about immigration. Yes, that was one of the major issues of this referendum. But I wonder if there's something deeper at work, something more profound behind why this country now appears to be so deeply divided.
It was once the centre of a huge fish industry and one of the top tourism destinations. But now a quarter of households are among the nation's most deeply deprived.
I wish I was a fisherman.
The market has shrunk amid austerity cuts, but a handful of stallholders hang on.
I voted out, yeah.
And why did you vote out?
Well, I voted out on sort of like what I've heard on our industry mainly since we got involved, and that our industry has shrunk and shrunk, you know. So hopefully we may have a chance, you know, of getting a bit of it back.
The Nichols-George family have been running this stall for 70 years. Away from the stall in the quiet of their home, I caught up with two generations of the family.
Hey, how are you? Love your garden.
Shakira is 16, too young to vote.
I would have voted leave personally for my individual case of my family's business. From like what I've heard from them, like that would have benefited us the most, and that would have been a worthy use of a vote. Me, being a teenager, is getting labelled as being racist purely because of my vote, and they didn't understand, not my vote, but what I would have voted for, because they didn't understand my individual case and what I've heard from my family. And getting labelled as racist when you're 16 isn't really like what you'd like to hear, especially from your friends. I'm not racist at all. I mean, like our National Health Service, like that depends on migrants as well. Like without they're like a massive benefit to us with our health services and stuff.
Many fishermen expect a bonanza if the UK regains control of its fisheries from the European Union.
Primarily, Sam, the outcome was fantastic for the fishing industry, but I've lived all through being in Europe. We were in a mess when we went in Europe. We've got a strong economy now, but we're still in a mess, really. So I can't see any benefit of being in Europe where all our piles are going to be whittled away. You can't see in the future, but if there's anything you can go by, the past has not been that great in Europe, so let's make a clean break and let's get a new start. And our government can then take that fish back and their fishing licences back, and that will put 38,000 tonne of fish back in our pockets.
So that would make you a richer man?
Well, not so much richer. That will make the country more profitable, and that will create more jobs for the country. I'll have my little bit, don't worry, Sam, but that's for the good of the country.
Paul is the last fisherman left in Great Yarmouth, a tradition he's passing on to his son. And for the next generation, it seems, things are so bad, they can only get better.
Everyone I know around here voted leave. We've got a town that was once great, but it's had its greatness ripped out heart out of it. People voted leave because there was nothing else to lose. And it's had everything taken out of it. You've had the fishing, you've had the oil, you've had, what else is there? You know, you can only go up from being down.
So why not have some change?
Exactly. You know, you got to see what Pandora's box holds sometimes. You have to open it.
Mind your nose now, Sam.
To these fishermen, today's politicians smell as bad as the rotten fish they use for lobster bait.
Well, the government has lost touch with the people. The vote obviously show that. I mean, I asked on social media, how could a government lose touch with its people so much? The trouble, what most people think, is that the government think Great Britain is inside the M25, where us living out here, we know that Great Britain is outside the M25, and their voices are never heard. That seems as though immigration was a huge issue in this area, because we've got a lot of immigrants working here. I mean, 72% of the people, that's 7 out of 10, voted to be out of Europe. I mean, that speaks volumes for itself. Our children have now got to realise that if they don't do well at school, they're going to be out picking sprouts.
Great Yarmouth seems to me to be a town not that's necessarily on its knees, but has lost a lot of its heart. It was a great port city once. But there are jobs here. They just happen to be mostly being done by immigrants, and that's something that the citizens have to figure out for themselves, I suppose. But above all, it's not an angry place. It voted to leave the European Union because the fishing industry clearly believes it would benefit. But for the others, I think really it's a sense that they're fed up with being ignored.
Leaving the Norfolk Broads for the Lincolnshire Fens, I headed to Boston. It's seen its population explode by nearly 500% in a decade. 13% of the people here are foreigners. Almost all of them are from the EU and mostly work in farming and food processing. 75% of its citizens voted to leave, the highest proportion in Britain.
Carla, you voted leave. Why was that?
I voted leave mostly because of the immigration, and my son works on the land, and I know that his job has totally gone downhill. I don't mind people coming from other countries working here, but I know in Boston the influx has been so quick, so rapid and so great, all in a short space of time. And I know that my son's job, cutting the cabbages and things in the field, has really gone bad. You know, his wages have totally dropped.
Is there also a sense, do you think, that people voted for leave because they felt that they weren't being listened to about anything?
Totally.
Since
yes,
the banking crisis?
I do think that. I think it was a chance for the small man to have his say, more or less.
A little bit of a revolution?
Yeah, I do think that. I just think a lot of them, the politicians, are in it for feathering their own nest. You know, Cameron and all those, they don't come down here and see how bad it is, how bad trade is and how ordinary people are struggling. I mean, they moan about people, dole money, £72 a fortnight or something. They would spend that on one lunch, wouldn't they? They would spend that on one lunch. They don't really see how the common person lives, I don't think. I don't think they're in touch with us. And I think that's another reason why everybody voted them out. We'd have been better with what we knew.
Yeah, but you voted leave.
Exactly. And I do think we were lied to. You know, you can't ever get the true facts from any of the politicians, any of them. Who's the Labour chap?
Corbyn.
I couldn't even have told you what side he was on. I think, and really, we shouldn't have had a referendum, should we? I really do think we were lied to.
And what about your Polish neighbours and people? Do you think they're feeling nervous and a bit kind of
Not where I live. No, I still think they're really nice. And my foreign customers that come, I really like them. I've nothing against them. You can't blame them for bettering themselves. But I just don't think we can do with any more. And we don't integrate. You know, I know they say, oh, we're all integrating, but we're not. They all keep to their own little set of things and we keep to ours.
Crossing this bridge over the Witham River, took me into the immigrant-dominated part of town.
For about the last hour, I've been going into European-run supermarkets, European-run cafes, European-run restaurants. In every case, people will talk in sort of whispers to me, but they won't appear on camera because they're afraid. Now, what they're afraid of is some kind of unknown backlash, not so much from the English community here, but from some government agency. They don't know where they stand.
The only local European Union citizen who would talk to me has a business helping new immigrants navigate the British bureaucracy that now so alarms them.
Well, many people are afraid, to be honest, very afraid, and they keep asking, Marta, what's going to happen with us? Unfortunately, I'm not able to answer this question because I think nobody knows, even British people, they don't know what's going to happen.
Has it created tensions between people from Eastern Europe and the local people?
I think yes, in some way, yes. I think British people don't understand, that we came here to work, to live, and we don't want to take their jobs. Yeah, we don't want to make them feel alien in their own town.
Now, we're just coming into the outskirts of Cambridge. Now, there has been a direct correlation between the level of people's education and their support for the Remain campaign. So it's no great surprise that this was a place that voted overwhelmingly to Remain. The question I guess I want answered here is, what are they so afraid of in leaving the European Union?
Just over 2/3 of people here have the equivalent of a university degree, and nearly 74% backed Remain. The university reckons it gets 17% of its funding from the EU. East English universities have had £250 million in EU funding in the last 2 years, and that figure's supposed to rise to £1.2 billion by 2020. But it's now in doubt.
If you're in your position and you're facing a situation in which your EU funding might be at risk, are you going to stick around?
This, of course, now brings into question of whether or not my company could actually go for future European funding. So there is a big question mark over whether or not it makes sense to remain in the UK. And I know a lot of companies, not just tech companies, but much larger companies also are now having this discussion, partly related to the fact that their labour force has a large percentage of non-UK nationals. So this freedom of movement of people really has been a major positive benefit for the country and the economy. And just having the uncertainty now of not knowing whether or not we are actually going to leave or if we're going to stay, I think that in itself is highly damaging, and the damage is done.
In Cambridge, we're really lucky. There's a lot of people that are involved in research and science that was a lot funded by the European Union, and a lot of people who really could see the concrete benefits of being in the EU. But to people in a lot of other areas of the country that voted to leave, they just don't see those benefits and they won't communicate it to them. I think it's important that we don't allow that anger to be channeled in the wrong directions or directed at the wrong people.
I think more than anything that needs communication from people who voted both ways to talk about what can best represent our views and how we can come together.
There has been a correlation between areas of high education, a place like this, higher education, and voting to Remain. Does that mean that the other lot are stupid?
I think that this was very much a protest vote, that there are areas of the country where in Britain there's huge inequality, and there are areas of the country where there's a lot of poverty and people don't feel as if they have a voice, and so they used this vote because they knew they could make a difference, and they have made a difference. We currently don't have a Prime Minister, the opposition's in complete tatters, and so they have made a change. So I think that was. I don't think it's really an educational difference. I think it's because of the inequality that we've got in the UK, and that really needs to change.
Well, it's no great surprise that pretty much anybody you meet in Cambridge is going to say that they were a Remain voter. But they also seem to accept that there is another view. And that other view, I think, we're going to now try and explore in Wellingborough, just about under an hour's drive from Cambridge. It's got one of the lowest rates of people with higher education. They voted very strongly to leave.
Sorry, I ain't got no money, I'm not trying to be funny, but I left it all at home today.
These recent school leavers are part of a group being coached on how to land a job. Any job. With little to lose, a Leave vote for them was worth the gamble.
What about you, Gary? You voted to leave?
I did, yeah.
And why?
I thought that it would be good for our country, give us a new fresh start away from the EU, other countries, and I just feel like I want to see what would happen if we did leave.
Are you worried by the idea that this is a step into the unknown?
Not really, because obviously, to be fair, it is like sort of an adventure to like, you know what I mean? So obviously, you don't know what's going to happen in like the next 2 years and all that. So it could go terribly wrong, or it could actually go quite well.
So why did you vote Leave? Because I think there's been a lot of tension in the country over this.
Because I think we should become our own country again. I don't believe that someone else should make up our rules, and that is what Brussels has been doing.
We're not racist, we just want to become our own independent country, which now we are. It is going to be a hard slog, but we'll get there.
Now the decision has been made, we should pull together because we are dividing more now.
Do you feel that?
The country is dividing more now it's been done, because as I said, there's a lot of hate crime going on at the minute, especially on social media. I am worried that it is going to turn into riots and things like that because of, you know, the younger people are saying that they're blaming on the older people, and it's what's happening. I don't think it's, yes, more younger people did want to stay,
But not that many voted.
Yeah. So how can you say that, your young people wanted to stay when most of the young people didn't vote because they didn't see the point in it?
Do you think that you'll have more opportunities outside of the European Union now? In terms of career and that kind of stuff?
I think there's going to be struggles, like obviously there's going to be struggles, but I think it will open doors as well.
And what about the suggestion too that people who voted Leave somehow less intelligent? What would you say to that?
Nobody voted for what they voted for because they were stupid or because they were trying to upset anyone. Everybody thought about it. Everybody voted because they thought that was right. So you can't say someone's stupid because it's not what you agree with.
Back to the capital. But even here, expectations can be subverted. Almost two-thirds voted to remain in this borough of Ealing, where 45% of people are immigrants. But in next-door Hillingdon, where 30% of people are also immigrants, the vote went the other way. 56% for Leave. These include Puneet Bandal, who is a writer and dress designer.
There would have been an assumption, I think, in the Remain camp, perhaps, that people of Asian descent, of non-white descent, if you like, would naturally sit with the Remain camp. How do you feel when people kind of make that assumption about you?
I mean, I think it's shocking and I think it's appalling to assume that because I voted to leave the European Union that I'm racist. I mean, it wasn't anything to do with race. If we want to increase our numbers here, we should be allowed to decide. If we want to reduce, we should be allowed to decide. It wasn't ever a referendum on race or immigration. It was one of the issues that became a big talking point going forward. It's really dangerous to assume that 50% of the country is racist.
But ultimately for you it was really this issue of sovereignty that cut right through.
It did. I mean, I think over the years, in the back of my head somewhere, you know, you hear all these stories. The Prime Minister's gone to Brussels to ask for X, Y and Z. He's been told, sorry, you can't have that, you can't have this, you can have a bit of this and a bit of this. And I just used to find it like, you know, why are we asking? We should be able to govern ourselves. It was this whole idea of being able to self-govern.
Were you happy to identify yourself around here as a leaver?
I was hesitant. When, a lovely Polish lady at the school asked me if I'm voting, I found myself withdrawing and not telling her who I'm voting for, because I don't want her to think I want her to go back home or she's not welcome here. She's as welcome as everybody else, as she belongs here as much as I do, as much as everybody does.
Do you feel the country's been left somewhat divided now?
I do think it is divided. I definitely think there is that, people do look at each other, are you a Remain or are you a Leave voter? And I think that's quite sad. I mean, it's a democracy. Perhaps if it was going to be such a catastrophe, we shouldn't have been given a referendum, the option to vote.
Do you think that your opportunities for your kids are going to be reduced because they won't be able to work quite so easily in Europe?
I can't believe that people have been saying, you've ruined the future of my grandchildren. I can't understand that. Maybe we've given them more opportunities. We don't quite know. And I think that now it has happened. I know that a lot of Leave voters are feeling a bit remorseful about their vote and they're a bit scared. Oh, look what we've done to the country. Are we going to be blamed if, the neighbours are losing their jobs, for example? But I think now that it's happened, if everybody was positive, looked at it in a positive light, it might not be a disaster. It might be fantastic. And then everybody will say, well, there we go, we're Great Britain.
Well, if there's one town in this country that's got to be almost synonymous with the Remain campaign, it's got to be the town that's famous, of course, for having the only Green MP in the country, famous as a seaside resort, and famous for its whole metropolitan outlook. And that, of course, is Brighton.
Brighton is young. Its population bulges with 18 to 24-year-olds. And here they look south to Europe. Nearly 70% voted to remain. Peggy Pollock considers Europe her classroom and playground. And like so many here, she's an artist and performer. They've never known a life outside the European Union with all the freedoms to move that come with it. Peggy's world just got smaller.
I didn't expect the result. I was at Glastonbury Festival and woke up to my friend sort of tapping me saying, look at Facebook, we're out, and my heart sank. I left my tent and I had a little walk around the campsite and I was just looking for people to say, like, is this true? Is this true? I need some counselling.
You sound sort of stunned and disorientated by it. Can you understand any of the arguments from the Leave perspective?
I can understand the lies. I can understand the desire to leave based on the lies, but I can't fathom why we'd want to leave the EU for any other reason than lies and this idea of us and them and they are coming to take our jobs. Like, even that I find, no, I don't understand why we've left.
How important is Europe to you?
I've just spent the past 6 months in Barcelona. I was happy to call it my home for the 6 months that I was there. I did little bits of work there. I met some of the most incredible people I've met. I learnt more in the 6 months in Barcelona than I possibly did at university in England. I think myself and so many friends around me have so much to learn, so much to gain by just free access into Europe and people from Europe being in England and teaching us their worldly views.
Do you feel that your horizons have been foreshortened?
If the sort of free movement in and out of Europe is restricted, then yeah, of course. I feel really hard. I feel privileged in the first place that we were able to, but I feel hard done by if this is suddenly a privilege that is removed.
Are you angry?
I'm nervous. I feel ill-educated as to what's happening next. I feel that no one can actually tell me what's really happening next. I'm angry at the lies. I'm angry at the sort of the almost reality TV show state of politics that seems to be unveiling before me at the moment. Everyone's nervous, everyone's kind of got their backs up, everyone's like...
People are fearful, aren't they?
Yeah, people are fearful. I speak of a generation of people who feel like they've been unheard and that feel that their vote doesn't make a difference. People feel really let down by the political system, and so it's a shame that so many people my age didn't vote. I think it's just a reflection of how many people feel like they have been unheard and how their vote hasn't counted, and perhaps this is an example of, come on guys, this is where it actually might have made a difference.
Back inside the beltway of the M25, Britain's politicians are falling on one another, leaving the nation leaderless.
Travelling across this country from Boston to Brighton, Great Yarmouth to Cambridge to Wellingborough, it's perfectly clear that this is a nation divided. It's divided according to social class, educational attainment, by geography, and between the generations. But I'll tell you where everybody is completely united, and that is in total contempt for the political classes of the age. People here want to throw those rascals out, every last one of them.